Welcome to episode 11 of Shane Talks. Tonight's episode, horror. But horror after Scream. We're going to look at how Scream changed the horror genre in the 90s and moving forward and all the stuff that tried to imitate it. But before we get into that, I got to address something real quick. If you listened to last week's episode, I threw out a nice joke about us being sponsored by Founders Beer. The day that episode went live, I got a text from a buddy of mine who told me that I should hit him up. So I hit up a friend of mine. I don't know if he wants to be named, so I will leave him nameless at the moment until I find out. But he works for Sun King Brewery here in Indianapolis, and he said, if you're going to drink beer on the podcast, why don't I give you some good beer to drink? So this week he provided us with Leap Year, which is one of the King's Reserve from Sun King. It is a lambic-style ale, and it is absolutely delicious. Nice, sour, and tart. Doesn't linger too long. Really enjoyable. Jason Maier was also given a bottle of it. What are your thoughts on it, Jason? How do you feel?
Very smooth, very tart, very delicious. Easily a dangerous beer for me. So.
Also on the call tonight, we have Evan Miller, who is really the guy who made this episode happen. Evan joined me on episode 8. He talked about the Mighty Ducks with me. While Evan and I were trying to organize our schedules to figure out when we were going to record that, he mentioned to me that he was going to watch a screening with some of his coworkers, that they were going to watch Urban Legend together. And that created a very long text chain between him and I about how much we both love the movie Urban Legend. So Evan was like, hey man, I love talking horror films with you. If you want to ever do an entire horror episode of the podcast, let's do it. And I said, hell yeah, man, let's make that happen. So here we are, episode 11. We are going to start talking about horror films. We're going to talk about horror films from 1996 on, well, actually December of 1996 is when we're starting this, so pretty much 1997 and on. Scream came out December 20th of 1996, and it literally changed the horror genre from what it was. Before that, in the 90s, really a lot that all I remember is the Nightmare on Elm Street series. A few of the Jason movies were still coming out, and Shocker is about the only other early 90s. Candyman, I guess, was there. But those were all still kind of very 80s inspired, very gore-centric type, like horror movies. Scream,
People Under the Stairs.
Oh, yeah, People Under the Stairs. Scream took it back. Well, and obviously Wes Craven directed it, who also directed the original Nightmare on Elm Street. It took it back to that like innocence of high school, and just kind of made it feel more realistic than I feel like the Freddy and Jason movies at that point were way over the top and ridiculous. Scream and Kevin Williamson's script brought it back down to this could actually happen, and that's what makes it so scary. Evan, talk about your introduction to the Scream franchise and how you fell in love with it.
I remember seeing Scream back on VHS. I didn't get to see it in theaters because I was a little bit too young at that point. I was at a summer camp type thing, and it was an overnight thing. And the movie of the night was Scream. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but sure, let's watch this Scream movie. I was legitimately terrified from the start of that movie until the end. It was really my first experience with the slasher genre and that type of horror film. When I was growing up, my parents were very, you're only allowed to watch certain types of things, and horror was certainly not one of them. I didn't have cable. I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons. And so it took, me being in other people's houses and things like that to be able to see stuff like this.
I feel like that happened with a lot of us when we were growing up.
Sure.
Not me, man.
Not Jason.
Not me. I was the exact opposite, man. Like, everything was in play. My brothers are 8 and 9 years older than me. I was watching stuff that I really shouldn't have watched at that age. And, I can remember watching Freddy and Jason when I was I was probably 4, maybe 5 years old.
Wow.
And every time the scary music would happen, I'd grab a pillow and I'd lift it up and put it over my face, but I'd sit there and watch the rest of that movie. But yeah, man, it's so weird because I was that kid who I would literally show R-rated movies X-rated movies to all of my friends. If they came over, everything was game. If I owned it, you could watch it at my house. And I was that kid in the neighborhood who was showing it to everybody. And I never got in trouble for it, but I'm sure that there are some kids whose parents really weren't happy that I was doing that.
All right, so moving on from that, how did you become introduced to Scream?
Oh, dude, that was something that came out. It was a niche film when it first came out, especially here in Indianapolis. It was not at every theater. It was at a very few theaters. It did not get its popularity for months. It started off so super small. I remember my brothers both went and saw it without me for whatever reason, and I just didn't go. And so they watched it at the old Glendale 123, and they loved it. They liked it so much they were like, Jason, you need to go see this movie. And so I ended up going and seeing it. I'm pretty sure I saw it while it was still at Glendale, which was it was basically like the bastard child of General Cinema at that time, because Clearwater had opened, and Clearwater was like 3-4 miles down the road. So it was, and that was brand new and shiny. It would open in, just 1993. So it was still super new and bright and shiny. So all the good stuff went there. And I just remember me going over to Glendale, watching it. I thought it was so cool. And then we played it. It must have been almost a year. Because we played it. They closed down they closed it down? No. They hadn't closed Glendale yet. It got moved over to Clearwater, and we were doing only midnights of it, and it was it would be like 40 people, which was kind of busy for a midnight, but like it was just randomness, about 40 people every weekend-ish. So it was Fridays and Saturdays only.
You mentioning those midnight shows at Clearwater, I'm just going to jump in real quick and say that's where I saw it. And I actually snuck into that showing because I watched it in Cinema 7, which had the payphones right outside of the theater. And since I was only 16, I technically couldn't buy an R-rated ticket. So I remember going up to the ticket taker with my pager in my hand, and I said, hey, man, I just need to make a phone call real quick and find out where my friends are. And he was like, yeah, okay, go ahead and go use the payphones. I went over there, I picked up the phone, I kept an eye on the ticket taker. As soon as he didn't have eyes on me, boom, I was in Theater 7 watching Scream.
I watched it I know I watched it at Glendale before it came to Clearwater, but then we had it, like I said, for a long, long time of just nothing but midnights. And I remember that because I'd get off I'd be scheduled off at midnight, and I'd go and watch it right after work. And I stepped into that movie probably at least 10 times after my shift ended, and I'd go in and I'd watch the rest of it. And then it became a full screen all day showing, like months after it had only been at midnights. It just expanded again. And so we went back to showing it multiple times, and once it started gaining momentum and popularity, and dude, everybody was talking about it at school. I remember that being a big thing for a while.
Oh yeah,
especially me and one of my movie friends. Her name is Carrie Bias. When I used to know her, way back when, and we used to talk about movies all the time, and she was like a huge fan of that movie. And so, I just remember it being super, super popular months after it came out. So, if you know anything about the movie industry, you make more money the longer a movie's in your building. And so, dude, I can't even imagine the amount of money Miramax had to pony out because they didn't get it all on opening weekend.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a great experience. I loved watching that movie in the theaters, and because it was gaining that popularity for the months going on, like going to those midnight showings, even you were watching it with people who had no idea what it was.
Sure.
So like every time people are getting excited and scared, and reacting the exact same way for months and months and months. It's unlike anything else I have experienced working in the movie theater industry as long as I have. So.
And I have to say that I feel like Kevin Williamson's script was just way ahead of its time. Like, the guy saw things and how to put a story together that nobody else had ever done before. Doing the red herring with Billy, like, so bluntly making it look like it's him, so that you go, there's no way that it's him. Like, they're telling me it's him. The twist has to be that it's not. And then you've got, after the sex scene when he gets stabbed, and you're like, oh, see, I was right. It wasn't him. Somebody else is the killer. And
dude.
And like, dude, that moment when he shuts the door, when he lets Randy in and then shuts the door and then just turns around and shoots him, like, I'm pretty sure my head exploded the very first time I saw that. I was like, wait a minute, what just happened?
I remember when I was watching it for the first time and Billy Loomis gets annihilated in that bathroom, or in the bedroom after the sex scene. And the moment I saw him at the top of the stairs, I went, he's not dead, he's the killer. He has to be. There's no way you get stabbed that much.
Sure.
And you're not, and there's no way he's still alive. And to watch it and then have it happen, I was like, oh yeah, woo! One of the few times I've guessed properly, at least back then.
Sure.
On a movie, on whodunit kind of thing.
So, Evan, as far as the story with Scream goes, is there anything that, like, sets it apart from everything else for you? Was there any storytelling moments or anything that make you go, this is what he did that I love so much?
I mean, I think it's a brilliant storyline. I mean, it's certainly something that hadn't really been done. You know, the Halloween, you have Freddy Krueger, you have Jason Voorhees, now you have Ghostface. And Ghostface really was just like its own new entity at that point. You know, these were real kids. This was a real high school student who happens to be another killer, multiple killers even. You know, I think for me, it was a lot of character based. Like, I'm a huge Randy fan.
Oh, yeah.
Scream 1, Scream 2. I love Randy.
Yep.
I think Jamie Kennedy was great. You know, Nev Campbell couldn't have been casted better as this innocent girl.
For sure.
I thought she was great. And even Courtney Cox. You know, if anything, I think David Arquette, it took me 2 movies in for me to really enjoy Dewey as a character. I wasn't a huge fan right off the bat in Scream 1, but certainly by Scream 2, I'd come around on him.
So with you listing all those killers like you just did, the one thing that I really enjoy about Scream is we finally got a killer that knew how to run. Because you always had Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees who just slow walked after everybody. And in this movie, you literally have a killer who runs and chases people and just made it feel realistic to me.
Did you guys think it was one killer or 2?
I always thought it was 1.
Dude, I always thought it was 1. And the greatest thing is going back and with both Scream 1 and 2, going back and watching them and figuring out who was the killer at what scenes.
Right.
Yeah, that is a lot of fun, especially when you get to sit down with friends and do something like that.
Sure.
I remember Shane and I have done that in the past, of knowing how much we love the movie. Like, it has to be this person because this person's over there doing this, or the alibis that you have to line up so that you know who it is.
Oh, well, yeah, and to that extent, we should probably address the fact that Scream is the only movie that was on both of our top 10 lists last week. So obviously It's one that we both really enjoy and really love. I need to address real quick, I own 2 copies of the Scream costume. I spent all day looking for my masks. I found both of my cloaks. I have lost 2 Scream masks, and it really upsets me. So tonight, I am doing the Roman Pritchard from Act 3 of Scream 3 after the mask has been revealed, where I still keep the hood on. So that's what I'm doing tonight. So let's talk about, while we're on Scream, let's just knock out the whole franchise right now before we go into everything else. So we have Scream, which was phenomenal, changed everything, and we're going to get to the ways that other movies tried to do Scream. But Scream 2 changed the setting, kept a lot of the cast, but added some new characters, and I personally believe that the 2 killers and the the ridiculous found them on the internet plotline was actually believable enough for me that I didn't mind it. Plus, I love Timothy Olyphant, so I felt like his character was awesome.
He's always good in everything he does too. Like he's one of those actors, and I don't ever give him enough credit. I always think of Sam Rockwell and Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio, but I constantly forget about how much I enjoy Timothy Olyphant. Scream 2, especially the first time I saw it was in a wonderful setting. Midnight movie in not the best part of town, and went with other high school students right after a dance at my senior year, and we were all dressed to the nines in like dresses. Like the girls were wearing dresses, we're still wearing shirts and ties and everything else.
I saw it at Cherry Tree on Washington Street. Where did you see it at?
I saw it at Eastgate on Washington Street.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Which is really weird that we both saw it on Washington Street, considering they weren't supposed to share product, but it is what it is. I don't remember. They don't normally share product, but that movie could have been big enough that they were sharing that product easily. But yeah, I remember, dude, that we were a bunch of white kids and white kid suburbia in the not so nice part of town, and everybody was giving us all sorts of sideways looks because of the fact that we were all dressed up very nicely. It was but then on top of that, it's one of my top 3 best movie going experiences of all time. It was fantastic. So love that movie.
Evan, did you get to see this one in theaters, or was it another video for you?
Oh, you guys want a good story. So
yeah.
I was 16 when Scream 2 came out.
All right.
I had not turned 17. I wasn't able to go see it yet. I had a group of fellow friends. We were going to go. One of the parents bought us tickets for opening night, Friday night. So I get to, at this point, it's General Cinema Burlington 10. I go. I grab my popcorn. I grab my Taco Bell, because we all know General Cinema. Taco Bell back in the day. So good. We're in line waiting to get in. And the theater manager stops us, asks us for IDs, and obviously none of us had IDs. And we ended up having to see Tomorrow Never Dies.
Oh,
that's what I wanted to see. Now, fast forward a couple months later, when I was 17, I ended up working at that theater for that guy and called him out for being an asshole at that point. Come to find out that one of his guilty pleasures was just being an asshole to kids on Friday and Saturday night.
Oh, wow.
Like so many of us enjoy.
Yeah, that's great. So when did you finally get to see it?
So my birthday, 17, getting it on VHS again. I had asked my video store, I'd pre-rented it or whatever for that particular day. I go to get it, and he had forgotten. This was like a very small local video store. He's no. I rented all my copies, but I do have a screener copy. I'm like, all right, I'll take your damn screener copy. Like, I don't know what this is. At the time, I didn't. So I'm watching it with my friends on my birthday, and this screener copy, every time that a kill happened, it went black and white.
What?
And at the bottom, it came up with the watermark saying this is property and blah 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 blah.
Yep.
And so I obviously ended up rewatching it after that point, but it seems every time there's something new there.
So did that guy let you keep that screener copy? Do you still have possession of it?
I don't. I returned it.
You returned it? Oh, man.
He didn't charge me anything to rent it. But.
So that's
awesome. So he gave it to you at least free.
Yeah.
He didn't charge you for it. So.
Yeah, and
you were nice enough to actually give it back to him.
Dude, nothing says cool kid's birthday party like the black and white horror movie. Absolutely.
So Scream 2, we obviously kept with some awesome cameos. We had Jada Pinkett and Omar Epps in the opening scene. Got some good kills out of them. Sarah Michelle Gellar has her 1 to 2 scenes in there where she ends up getting killed. Rebecca Gayheart doesn't get killed, unfortunately, but she's one of the sorority girls in the movie. Portia de Rossi is the other sorority girl that hangs out with her. And then, again, the two killer thing in the end, it kind of works for me. Like, the internet was so new at that point, like, probably wasn't monitored well enough that you couldn't have serial killer forums. Might be a little.
Oh, absolutely.
It might be a little stretch, but it still worked for me. It worked a lot better than Scream 3. And Scream 3, unfortunately, was the bad product of being right after Columbine happened. And Miramax forced Aaron Kruger, the writer, and Wes Craven to basically cut as much horror as they could and make it as comedic add more comedy to it. That's why Jay and Silent Bob got thrown in the movie. That's why most of the murders aren't actually when Jenny McCarthy gets killed in that one, she just gets thrown over a piece of glass instead of like some kind of brutal stabbing or murder or anything. Like, they really toned down a lot of the stuff in it. Story-wise, I enjoyed the fact that they connected it back to the first movie, but that was really about the only redeeming part of the third one for me. Like, again, they had Lance Hendrickson in there, they had Jenny McCarthy in there.
You know what? The beginning of that movie is really awesome, though.
Killing Cotton Weary is a very good opening sequence.
Yeah, the whole Liev Schreiber sequence at the beginning is
it's nice and tense. And you get to you learn that he's got the different voice control modulator in this one, which I give him credit for changing up the game a little bit, but when you go that far with it, like as they show in the movie, he literally can do the voice of anybody, and I don't know, that was a little odd for me.
I get that, and I agree with you on that, but I just remember, like, I can't. Did you and I see that one together for the first time?
We built it up at Eastgate. We were somewhere else, and we found out that Eastgate got the print of it, so we hurried our butts down there and built it up.
So yeah, that print showed up, and I remember watching the very first sequence starting to happen, like the whole thing with Cotton Weary happened, mm-hmm. And I looked at you right after he died, and I went, if this movie is like this the whole way through, damn. Right. And then it, like, that was the high point for me in that whole movie, and then it just drastically drops down. So
yeah, because even the fight with Roman at the end, like, it's pretty lame in the screening room. We both have bulletproof vests. Oh, guns don't hurt either of us. Oh, here's an ice pick. Oh,
let's not shoot each other in the face or anything.
Right. Let's both only shoot center mass. Like, and then, like,
you guys didn't like the final cut pun? I'll give you final cut. Yeah, you will.
Or like the throwing of the knife from the bottom of the stairs, and it just happens to hit Dewey with the butt of the knife instead of any other sharp part of the knife. Like, they just did some really terrible stuff in that movie. Yeah, that in my opinion is the low point of the franchise. I know Jason and I disagree on 4. I watch 4 pretty regularly, and I find it far superior to 3. And I actually, for waiting 15 years to do it, I thought it was really well done.
Oh man, that 4th one, dude! Like, it's just like you're just talking about 3 and 4. It's like kind of like how I compare the Transformers series. Do you want a pile of shit, or do you want a different pile of shit? Like, it's really, that 4th one is so bad. Although I will say that what is her name? Hayden Panettiere in that movie is like the saving grace for that film for me. Everybody like Neve Campbell's character makes sense that she's off in the middle of nowhere and doing what she's doing. That is the 4th one, right?
No, the 4th one is when she's on her book tour back in Woodsboro.
Oh, so man, 3 is when she's off on her own. And, like,
3 is when she spends the first 45 minutes or like hour of the movie not interacting with any of the other cast.
Okay, so number 4 obviously made such a good impression that I don't remember any of it, except
she's back in Woodsboro on her book tour. Alison Brie from Community is her publicist.
And what's her Roberts?
Emma Roberts is her nephew or niece. Yeah.
So yeah, hey, I like the concept at the end and the reveal of them, and I thought that was kind of interesting, and them using the all the different angles and videoing everything kind of thing
Sure.
kind of worked, but until like for the most part, it felt like a cash grab to me. It did not feel like a Scream movie to me.
See, my biggest complaint is they didn't end it with what happened at the house when they went to the hospital for the last 15 minutes. Like that's when it got really bad.
Shark moment, dude.
Like that's just when it got really bad for me.
Yeah, I will agree with you. That's definitely a little hard to put up with.
But I like all the stuff that happened at the house. I like the reveal. I like the fact that she was manipulating the boy, making him think that she liked him just so that he would go along with her plot so she could pin everything on him. Like, I really enjoyed that manipulation part of it. I agree, and throughout the entire movie, Hayden Panettiere's character is just hilarious, awesome. She's the Jamie Kennedy of that movie. Evan, go ahead.
What was it? I just saw something recently that she retweeted that she'd be up for Scream 5 because you never actually see her character die on screen. She gets stabbed, but she never, no confirmation of death. So I'd be all for it.
They did the same thing they did with Dewey in the first one when he gets stabbed and you never know if he survives or not until the second one.
I thought you didn't he. She's like checking on him while he's getting thrown in the back of the ambulance, right?
Yeah, he does get taken out of a stretcher.
Yeah, so you knew he was a little bit alive at least.
I guess
he wasn't dead.
So anyway. Evan, how the fourth one play for you?
Well, first thing I'm gonna start with number 3 real fast.
Oh, yep.
I love Scream 3, and I'll tell you why it sold me. The second that I heard Creed blasting in the background, I love me some Creed.
I'm with you on Creed.
You know, but that's beside the point. Fourth one, I was so psyched for that fourth one. We started getting those posters in. I was just like, I can't wait to collect this entire 3-4 poster set. I was a little bit let down, but also I was just like, well, I can't complain because it's been so long since I've been able to see a new Scream film.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take anything they're going to throw at me right now. I'm kind of glad they didn't go with the reboot idea. I do like the core cast of characters for the most part.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to die.
I found it funny.
Out of those 3, come on.
I wrote a fake. I want to say it was a Scream 3 treatment well before that was a thing. But my opening scene that I had written was whoever the killer was going to be killed Neve Campbell in the first 5 minutes of my script, and it was Neve Campbell that died, not Sidney Prescott. And the whole idea behind that would have been, that we're taking the actors, we're taking the real people. Not
so you were gonna do new Nightmare.
New Nightmare, yep. That's what I was about to say. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
That'd be very interesting. Very meta.
You've got my wheels turning.
Right.
That's pretty great.
So aside from Creed and Scream 3, how did Scream 4 play for you?
I really enjoyed the beginning with the kind of the multiple stab.
I very much enjoyed
that. Showing over and over again. Only because I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen.
Sure.
And they did. I think it was 3 different versions of that before. I'm like, oh my god, they're just going to keep being meta. Meta. I get it. Okay, cool. The second that you hear, Ghostface's voice, that sold me right into it all over again. Roger Jackson, his voice is iconic to that character. There's no one else who could do that voice. And I
really enjoy the fact that on set they never let any of the actors meet him. They only ever heard his voice on the phone. Like, I love the fact that Wes Craven was like, "This is what we're gonna do."
Wow.
And if you've seen Roger Jackson in real life, like, he's nothing. It looks nothing like what you would expect his voice to be.
Cool. So we've just spent about 30 minutes talking about our love for the Scream franchise. These next 30-some movies are not going to take us 4 hours to get through. The first one that came out almost a year later was I Know What You Did Last Summer. Yes, Jason?
Oh, dude, I love that movie, man.
Yep.
I mean, go ahead with what you were going to say. We can get into it.
I was going to say, since I see the entire list of what we're going to talk about, I literally think this is the best post-Scream movie on this list. Like, I think it's a really fun movie on its own. Much like the original Scream, it does have some comedy in it, but it's all very subtle. Like, they're not trying to play the comedy. It's got like Johnny Galecki when he's like, you can wipe that shit-eating grin off your face. And then Freddie Prinze Jr. is like, okay. I like the subtle humor and stuff like that. Storyline wise, I really thought it was another good twist-ish at the end where they build up that it's, you know, the boyfriend character that's killing them, and then you find out it's the father. Like, I thought that was a really well done twist. It really just it followed Scream by setting it in high school and making everything seem realistic. Again, my thing I don't like about it is the fisherman goes back to the Michael Myers slow walk.
Oh, totally.
And
like
that's annoying.
Like, I just watched it again recently, and that whole movie is so you want to say implausible, but it's pretty much impossible for that killer to pull off what he pulls off in that movie, especially like when he's under the plastic where all the mannequins are. It's so he had the time to run into that room, put the plastic on, and stand perfectly still and not make any sounds with moving the plastic, so that he could position himself just right, and he knew she'd be right there. It's one of those. It's almost like Kevin Williamson took all of the things that make perfect sense in horror movies, and decided, I'm gonna do the opposite with this killer, just to see what happens in this movie.
Sure.
And it worked. It worked. Still, I'm still hook, line, and sinker. You've got a great cast.
Oh yeah.
I've loved Sarah Michelle Gellar for years. At that point in time, I wasn't Mariah Carey obsessed, but it was as some people were. But she was definitely high on my list of celebrity crushes.
Sure.
And then Jennifer Love Hewitt and Ryan Felipe and Freddie Prinze Jr. Like, it was such a great cast. And Ryan Felipe, surprise, surprise, plays a jackass really, really well. And you totally hate his character in that movie. He's such a douche canoe. Like, you're just like, I'm not surprised that I'm surprised you're not dead yet. Like,
well, and even the chance that the fisherman has to kill him, he lets him live after he hits him with his car, and he just walks over him and then fade to black. Like, that's one of the few moments in the movie where I'm like, really? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
But didn't he want to kill all of them on the same day, like on the anniversary thing? Like, wasn't that the BS reason? Like, that's the only problem with that movie for me, is the fact that, like, again, Kevin Williamson wrote such a smart script with Scream, where it was like killer takes advantage of situation, compared to this one where he was like, killer has this very implausible idea of what he can pull off, and he somehow pulls it off perfectly. Like the whole chase sequence with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yep.
He makes it from the second floor of the building all the way down to the first floor, and he runs like all the way around another building and hides inside those tires while she's like running down the alley that's right next to it, and she never saw him get into those tires.
Yeah.
But it's silly, but I still love it. But it definitely goes back to like regular horror genre for Kevin Williamson. So
for sure. Evan, your thoughts on it?
I actually got to see this one in a theater without an issue.
That was our senior year, wasn't it, Shane?
Yeah, it was our senior year. Yep.
It was fun. I really dug it. Much like Jason, I'm a huge Sarah Michelle Gellar fan. Also thought Jennifer Love Hewitt was hot. Super hot. Why wouldn't I want to? I would watch her. I would watch a 3-hour movie of just her running.
Yep.
That'd get my $10, $15, whatever it is nowadays. It's the same. You get a nice good looking group of high school students. And yeah, Kevin Williamson, I think, is a genius. Certainly, again, like Jason said, there are things that just don't add up. But you kind of overlook it at that point.
For sure.
I'll never look at a fish hook the same, I think, ever again. I never would have thought of that as a killing weapon per se. And
right.
That's if I look at it, I automatically equate the two things. Yeah, it's fun. It's just fun horror. It certainly still has those jump scare moments like Scream did.
For sure. So we jump ahead about 9 months now. We're in July of 1998, and the movie Disturbing Behavior comes out, which I know Jason hates. I think
I've seen it twice. Maybe.
I hated it when it first came out, but it's one that the more and more I watch it, the more and more I enjoy it. It's ridiculous. It's the Stepford Children. It's super sci-fi. The only connections that it really took from Scream was it had a really good high school cast of characters, and we're going to get to the faculty later, but it's the students versus adults concept that was going on in that movie, where Bruce Greenwood is basically trying to create these perfect kids, and of course when they get sexually aroused they decide to get violent. So the scene that stands out the most for me is the supermarket scene where the guy is looking outside at the insanely beautiful Katie Holmes and just keeps looking at her, and then all of a sudden, like, the guy behind him bumps into him, and he decides to basically just incite a riot inside of the convenience store.
As only Katie Holmes can do to a man.
Right? But yeah, I mean, Katie Holmes, Nick Stahl, James Marsden, and Bruce Greenwood had a really good cast to it. But I understand why a lot of people don't like it. It's not really so much a slasher movie as it is more of just, again, when we get to the faculty, there's a lot of correlations between those two where it's really not so much about killing people as it is about just like the possession or like mentally different aspect of the characters. Evan, you got thoughts on Disturbing Behavior?
I thoroughly enjoy that movie. I remember the trailer with the soundtrack. That song from the trailer is in the movie.
Yep.
I remember that. It's a high point for me. I have one gripe with that movie, and it's only because you obviously you have we'll take the kind of like mechanic-y whatever kid who's kind of a douchebag,
yep,
picks a fight with the preppy kid, whatever. And he gets jumped by the preppy kids, obviously. Yep. I want to see what happens between, the jumping and the, well, now you're a zombie also.
Sure.
Like, you actually never see, like,
how
where he gets dragged to, like, what, right. I mean, you do see at the end where, Greenwood's working on whatever the blonde chick's eye is after she smashed her own face into that mirror.
Yep.
But that's still a very brief scene. I would have liked to have seen that explored a little bit more.
It makes me wonder if it was a Hitchcockian choice where they more wanted you to process it in your own head, and whatever you come up with is probably scarier than what really was going on. That's possibly my only explanation for why they don't show it, or budgetary reasons.
I mean, for me, I think that the scene that sticks out the most is probably that opening scene. Guy getting a nice BJ and then because
and then he has to shoot a cop.
Right, exactly. I
totally don't remember this movie.
I've watched that.
Well, all right. So how about the same summer, the next month, the Halloween franchise was brought into the 1998s. We had Halloween H2O. Again, it took the concept from Scream of being set in a high school, this time a secluded high school. It brought Laurie Strode's character forward, gave her a new name. She was in hiding. You got Josh Hartnett and Jodie Lynn O'Keefe and Michelle Williams. I don't remember the fourth guy's name off the top of my head. I can't remember. But anyway, so I really love H2O. And I love H2O because I had seen Halloween a bunch of times because obviously um, Scream is the movie that got me into the horror genre. I went back and watched a bunch of old ones after I saw Scream. Obviously fell in love with Halloween because I agree that it's probably one of the most perfect movies ever made. Um, but I basically got the best of both worlds. I got an age-appropriate movie for me in 1998 that connected back to a movie that I appreciated from 20 years ago, and I got Michael Myers chasing modern-day teenagers. I really enjoy the movie. I it's obviously not a whodunit type slasher thriller. Like we obviously know it's Michael Myers. We obviously know he's gonna kill a bunch of people and then get away at the end. But I still enjoyed the ride. Either you guys have thoughts on it?
I mean, I'll start with the positive. I also am a fan of H2O.
Nice.
All these movies, Scream. I know we did last summer, Halloween, H2O. I owned all these on VHS at one point before I gave them all away. Before working in movie theater, I worked at Blockbuster Video.
Awesome.
And I had a shelf that was, Evan's picks for, whoever wanted to rent my movies, and most of them were these films.
Nice.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, yes, in the opening scene.
That first, 7 minutes of that movie. I thought that was great.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was bloody to the right effect. Now, this is also where I started to think that maybe groups of high school students, or in this case, private school students, was starting to get overplayed to a certain extent. I mean,
Okay.
Every movie now seemed to be, all right, well, it's a group of kids, they're going to die.
Sure.
But that's my only real gripe. I thought Jamie Lee Curtis was fantastic. LL Cool J was a nice dose of humor.
Oh, yeah.
Security guard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have really anything negative to say other than, as a whole horror genre, the whole group of kids, you're going to be set in a perilous situation. You're probably going to die.
Yep.
It started to outdo itself.
The only negative thing I have to say about the movie is how they retconned it in Halloween Resurrection and made it so that she didn't actually chop his head off, that it was the security guard's head. I thought that was really dumb. But that has nothing to do with H2O itself. Jason, how do you feel about H2O?
I honestly, I remember aspects of the movie, but for the most part, I don't remember much. Gotcha. I saw it. I know I saw it in the theater. I don't know if I've watched it any since then. I remember thinking it was a pretty cool concept at the time. I just never felt the need to go back to it. So
nice. Well, 1 month later, we got the movie that created this entire podcast tonight. September of '98 was Urban Legend, which has such a great cast. And not only the main teenage cast, I absolutely love the fact they brought in Robert Englund as one of the professors. So you got Freddy Krueger as a professor. You got Freddy Krueger as a professor, and then the guy in the opening scene at the gas station is the voice of Chucky. Brad Dourif. There we go, Brad Dourif. I love the fact that they brought in those guys as the adults in the movie. Aside from the great kids cast that they had. So what were you saying, Jason?
I was just going to say, I remember them selling you on the fact that Robert Englund was going to be in that movie.
Sure.
And then he was nowhere near the person that you thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be in so much more of it, but they kept harping on the fact that Robert Englund was going to be in this movie. Robert Englund's an Urban Legend, and it was like, where is he? He was in the movie, but yeah, he barely existed in that movie. But lots of fun. Very cool kills. Very cool kills in the movie. One of the things that I really look forward to when I watch a horror film is, are you going to kill him in a way that I wasn't expecting you to? Is it any kind of new? Is it any kind of different? I love the whodunit factors. I'm currently watching a show called Absentia, or Absentia, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It's an Amazon original that's a whodunit, and it's got me hooked. I'm on episode 8 right now out of 10. I'm trying to finish it up so I can figure out, hey, who the heck did this?
Nice.
Because they keep throwing red herrings in it. and yes, I'm plugging that show. You should take the time to watch it if you're a fan of Beckett from Castle or whodunits in general. But yeah, yes. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, the whodunit factor in Urban Legends really cool.
The whodunit factor is really cool until they reveal it. And then you think back and you go, how did a little 100-pound girl do half of the stuff that happened in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like movies do that ever, right?
Right. All right, so Evan, our whole friendship was based on the fact that we both love Urban Legend. I want you to tell me everything you love about it.
What is not to love about this movie? Again, you have another great young-looking cast. Jared Leto was just coming into his prime there before he started doing other random things.
Yeah. I was gonna say prime. He's not even near his prime of that movie. Like it's like he's just breaking in.
You got Laura Prepon as the again the innocent girl. Danielle Harris makes an appearance as the roommate from Halloween.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. They threw in Danielle Harris, who was great for connecting to the Halloween franchise. I also love her as Joe Hallenbeck's daughter in The Last Boy Scout.
She was also great in Hatchet 2, I think. Hatchet 2 and 3.
I've read about those movies, but I haven't watched any of them.
Oh, that's got to make your list at some point.
Okay.
Give that a shot. Hatchet.
All right.
I would definitely check that out. I love the concept of urban legends in general. So that had already sold me based on the title, based on what the concept was about. Totally believable that someone could go on a killing spree and base these things off of urban legend.
Mm-hmm.
There's the kills in this movie were just really fun. I mean, Joshua Jackson, bleach blonde hair, being hung from that car. I also really, something that stands out in my mind is, when he jumps in the car for the first time and Dawson's Creek theme pops up for like 2.5 seconds. I die every time I see that.
That's the kind of subtle humor that I really like in these kind of movies. You guys can't see at the moment, but I'm currently holding up The Vanishing Hitchhiker, which is the book that has a bunch of the urban legends that are in that movie, just to show that it's a great book.
As I recall, I was afraid to eat Pop Rocks and have a can of soda for a little while. Because I was not 100% sure whether or not that was going to kill me or not.
Dude, Michael Rosenbaum, before he did anything?
Dude, that cast is crazy. And
Alicia Witt?
The amount of people that are in it are awesome.
Yep. Rebecca Gayheart.
Right, it was Alicia Witt, not Laura Prepon. I had to remember that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Alicia Witt, yeah. Even the girl that gets her head chopped off in the opening scene, like, I don't think she's huge, but I think when I looked her up yesterday, I was like, oh, she has done quite a few things, and I can't remember what they are now.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
But yeah, that's a great cast. Loretta Devine as the cop. You know what? I want to do a crossover movie with Loretta Devine, the cop from this movie, and LL Cool J, the cop from H2O. I just want them to end up at the same security company and just tell stories about the stuff that they went through.
Yeah.
That's my crossover.
That, though, like, again, this is suspension of disbelief for me, but if you walk into a room and you're a security guard holding that gun, just shoot the person. Why are you having a talk with them first? Just do it. Shoot them, get it over with.
And then 15 minutes later, when she finally does shoot her, and then she immediately passes out after shooting one bullet.
Right. Yeah.
Like, come on.
She kind of had her. I thought she was great. I really do. They kind of built her up with the whole Pamela Greer, Foxy Brown. You think, she's going to be this badass in the end, and then she really wasn't a badass to a point.
Yeah.
She kind of got her ass kicked relatively fast, but I mean she's even good in the second one. I mean I'm a huge fan of Urban Legends Final Cut. I thought had it had a little bit of a bigger budget, it would have been a little bit better than it was. But I'm a sucker for the film school stuff and things like that.
Because you told me you liked it, I'm going to give it another chance. I've only ever watched it once, and I remember hating it. But because you say it's good, I'm going to give it another shot and see if I feel different.
I mean, friendship over, I guess, because you're not going to agree.
Friendship over. It's got a 5.6. Urban Legend's got a 5.6 on IMDb.
Well, I mean, obviously only people who don't like it vote on it. I gave it a 9.
I will point out, though, much like Timothy Olyphant's psychotic turn, Rebecca Gayheart, she really went from 0 to like 60.
Oh yeah, I'll give you that.
2.5. Her dark turn there with her like psychotic laughter really did freak me out. That's just solid acting on her.
Is the second one Final Cut?
Yeah.
Yeah, second one is Final Cut. It's Jennifer Morrison.
4.3.
Oh.
On IMDb.
Joey Disturbing Behavior did.
So we're
Joey Lawrence and Eva Mendes. Maybe I do need to watch this movie.
we're gonna
you said disturbing.
We're gonna breeze over. I still know what you did last summer. It was terrible. There's no reason to talk about it. But
5.7.
In December of '98, we got The Faculty, which isn't the straight slasher genre. It's more of a sci-fi genre, but still the kids in high school against the terror of the adults and trying to the invasion of the body snatchers plot that's happening to the adults. I love the cast. I love the soundtrack. I absolutely love everything about the movie. Just watched it today to mentally get ready for tonight. Still holds up. I still love Josh Hartnett. I'm a huge fan of The Faculty.
Two things that stick out from that movie for me.
Yep.
Always will remember his Camaro because it's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
And then the second thing, it always makes me laugh, and I always think about it when I'm sick and I'm going to work. When Selma Hayek says, "I'm saving my sick days for when I feel good."
Mm-hmm.
I like those are the two things. The rest of the movie is fun and enjoyable and entertaining, but I always think every time I'm sick and I'm going to work and I'm like, I should call in sick. I'm like, nope, I'm going to save those sick days for when I feel better, which doesn't end up how I use them, but yeah, it's still funny that always pops into my head. So.
Well, and The Faculty had a great teen cast, and it had a great adult cast. Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool News is in there for one scene. Selma Hayek, like you said. Jon Stewart, who I love. Famke Janssen.
Is Robert Patrick in it?
Robert Patrick is in it.
Yeah.
Bebe Neuwirth as the principal. All I'd ever known her from was Cheers as Lilith. So to see her as a completely different character was awesome. And then, like we said, we got the great teen cast. And the one thing that it does okay is it does kind of have not necessarily a whodunit, but the reveal of the blonde girl being the alien queen. I thought was really well done because they give you the flashback of how she, used her pinky finger to cheat the test that they were giving everybody. Thought that was all right. Like, it was cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun, very silly. Holds a special place in my heart for who I saw it with when I saw it. Yeah, it was a cool movie.
Evan,
a lot of fun.
What are your feelings on The Faculty?
Great cast. I'll certainly say that it's kind of a once and done for me.
Okay.
I know I had it again on VHS. I probably watched it once or twice. It doesn't really hold like a high place in my horror list of things.
Is that Robert Rodriguez who directed it?
Yes.
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I did. I was just remembering I remember the "School's Out for Summer" song playing while they were in the trailer, and Josh Hartnett breaking off the knife off the
paper cutter.
The paper cutter, the paper slicer, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I just remember that. And Jon Stewart getting hit in the face with it. And, it's a fun, silly movie. Like, it's definitely not something that I've watched a whole lot since ever. But if it was on, I'd probably give it a watch.
Well, and you bringing that up just reminded me. I forgot to talk about my favorite line from Disturbing Behavior at the very end, where the guy gets in his car and he's gonna run over Bruce Greenwood. He says, "Hey, teachers, leave those kids alone." Oh man, such a great line, so well written. When we go to 1999, the movies there's not much. We have two totally different like horror movies that came out that year: Idle Hands and the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, but see, Idle Hands, I don't even know if you can qualify that as like horror, because that, I mean, it's horror comedy, but it's so slapstick and ridiculous. Like, it's so I don't know, and I feel weird that it's on this list personally, just because I don't think it fits compared to like you might not have gotten that movie made if not for the Scream craze at the time.
Sure.
But I can't imagine that somebody watched Scream and then was like, I'd write Idle Hands because of Scream. Like that movie is so stoner.
Oh,
like
for sure.
Like that movie is so on a different level. It's absolutely ridiculous and it's so stupid and funny, man. Like I own that movie. I don't know if I've watched it in 15 years at least. It's very stupid and silly as far as I can remember. But talking about it now makes me want to go watch it right now. Like,
I mean, all you got to think about is Seth Green and Eldon Henson are his friends that he kills, and then they become the best comedic parts of that entire movie.
Oh, dude, and yeah, and Jessica Alba's first big role, I think, because before this she was in not Jawbreaker. What was the other one? She Never Been Kissed. I think she was in that one.
Yes, she was. Yep. Well,
either right before this or right after it.
Yeah, so. Like within a month of it, probably. I think Never Been Kissed was either March or May of '99. So yeah, right around the same time.
Like, yeah, and she's just all sorts of really good looking in this film. So.
Yep.
Yeah, like definitely a saving grace. And Devon Sawa, like that movie is just so stupid and funny. I'm seriously contemplating now, thinking I need to watch this sometime soon.
I revisited it last year when I was doing my 20-year anniversary of 1999, and I remember like last year still loving the movie. Like I probably hadn't seen it since '99 when I went and rewatched it, and I laughed a lot. I really enjoyed watching it again. And I agree, it didn't really take anything from Scream, but I don't think it would have gotten made without Scream.
Speaking of which, like Dimension Films, like I don't remember them making a whole lot before Scream. I know that they're an offshoot of Miramax at that time, so they're Disney owned.
Yep.
But dude, like
yeah, Dimension Films is Miramax's like horror genre, like. Miramax's artsy movies and Dimension. I mean, Scream may have been their first movie.
Like, I'm interested to know that just for the simple fact that, like, that brand, that studio, literally took off because of Scream.
Oh,
they made 100%. One good choice, and it seems like they went off on that. So I'll look that up. While Evan can tell us anything
thoughts
about
on Idle Hands?
I mean, I'm gonna have to agree. Like, I don't consider that much of a horror film. You know, it certainly has some horror elements. You know, I laughed, obviously. You know, I think Eldon Henson and Seth Green are great.
Oh yeah,
you're right about them being just a fantastic comedy duo. They truly are. Walking around with beer bottles stuck out of their heads and heads cut off. You know, like
duct tapes it back on. You know,
if someone mentions Idle Hands to me, you know, I can remember the movie. Like, there's not a problem there. You know, I remember the kid banging his girlfriend in the prom parking lot there, and all of a sudden you see the idle hand is on one boob and the other guy's on the other. I thought that was really funny. Like, again, it's something I'll remember. The Offspring pops up as the band, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
You know, can't go wrong with the Offspring.
Nope.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, you know, Devon Sawa, I thought was great, and you know, Final Destination obviously was his bigger role.
Which we're about to get to, because Blair Witch doesn't need to be discussed in this. It obviously was its own thing, had nothing to do with Scream. We've already discussed Scream 3, Final Destination in March of 2000. Final Destination was amazing. Again, I was age appropriate for it, for having kids in high school. Great cast, great story, great sci-fi aspect to it, but it had some great kills. Like, the kills were always in the whole Final Destination franchise.
the one remaining constant through all of horror films, for the most part, is the cast that they get are incredible casts.
Yeah.
I mean, each of these movies that we've discussed, the cast is perfect. They all did great jobs.
Oh, yeah.
And they all pretty much went on to do bigger and better things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that probably says something about all of these horror movies. You know, they attracted these actors at this point in time. And you know, I think, they're all played perfectly. And this is another example of that.
For sure. Jason, Final Destination. Or what you got?
Okay. Scream was Dimension's 24th film.
What?
Yeah. They get a whole lot of direct-to-DVD stuff, but, like, I mean, besides that, Hellraiser 3, Children of the Corn 2.
Okay.
The Crow was a Dimension film.
Oh,
I forgot that was. Children of the Corn 3. Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers.
Really?
From Dusk Till Dawn. Hellraiser 3 or 4.
Yep.
Highlander 3. Super Cop 1 and 2.
Oh, wow.
The Second Crow. The next Children of Corn, which is number 4. And then Scream. Yeah, man. Like, that was apparently, like, yeah. So Scream was like number 24 on its list. They started in 1992 and then became Scream was 96. So
yeah,
all right.
Going back to Final Destination. Final Destination is a wonderful franchise. I think I've watched all of them. If I haven't, I should have. It's again one of those entertaining things where. The reason why I watch horror movies is to see how the killer does what he's going to do. What instrument does he use? How does he do it? How does he surprise them? Which just becomes all the more entertaining when you are doing a horror movie based on people getting killed by death.
Yeah.
I think that the concept was cool and original with the first one. It was a nice way to do the horror genre without giving you a physical form. That somebody's really like somebody physical is stalking them. And I mean, who doesn't every time you follow behind a log truck think that's is that the second movie of the third?
That's the opening of the second one.
Like,
yeah.
Literally every single time I'm sitting there watching it. Like,
yep.
Are any of those logs coming off?
I don't stay there. I get away. I get around. I can't do it. No, I agree with you on that.
Absolutely hilarious. But yeah, I really enjoy all, and like even when they do, I think it was the second or the third one where like somebody slips on a fire escape, and like the moment you think it's safe, they go for it. Like they give you that hesitation where you're like, oh, he's not dead. Oh, yeah, he's really dead.
Oh, and I'm pretty sure the second one's the one that's got the sauna scene in it, and that's rough.
Oh man, that whole series is really fun and entertaining. It got a little ridiculous near the end, although I like the one I can't remember if it's 4 or 5, like tied all the way back to the first one.
It's 5.
Okay.
In 5, they do a great job of like there's like no cell phones in the movie, and like they never.
And you don't notice it.
Right, they don't establish a date or a time or anything in the 5th movie, and then literally like the final scene of the 5th movie after the one guy has survived it all, like they I can't remember. I don't remember.
They get on the plane.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yes, he gets on the plane that's in the first movie, and they did a great job of using footage from the first movie where you see like the kids boarding the plane as they did in the first movie.
Oh, yeah. dude, it was
I remember you and I watched it together, and we both were like, "Wait a minute, really? Like that's so cool."
Yeah, they got inventive in different ways, and it was a nice twist on it.
Yeah. So, as a David Boreanaz fan, Jason, what are your thoughts on Valentine in February of 2001?
I was just talking to Evan. Just talking to Evan about this last week or 2 weeks ago. I was like, Dude, that movie is so bad, and I wanted to love it so much. Like being a huge Buffy fan, I was like, anything that David Boreanaz does, man, I'm gonna watch it. And then like he did Crow 3 or 4 or whatever, and that was really bad. And then
Listen,
and then Valentine
David
came out, and I
Boreanaz
was all
is
pumped for Valentine.
David Boreanaz is absolutely a TV guy. Like, that's where he needs to stay. Bones, Buffy, so good.
And I love him on SEAL Team. Like,
how you
SEAL
trying
Team
to convince
really cool.
me that David Boreanaz was the nerdy guy that nobody liked? That's garbage. That's the dumbest plot device I've ever. Like, no, in no way do I believe.
He's literally the tall, dark, and handsome that every girl talks about.
Exactly.
Like, there's no way that he's the nerd that nobody cares about. He, what's interesting to me is one of those moments of like, from a philosophical point, I think any actor can be in motion pictures, Evan, but I think it takes the right director to get you to be able to make that transition. And then something maybe clicks in you as an actor to finally realize what you have to do differently. But yeah, it literally looked like a made-for-TV movie, man. Like, that Valentine is horrid.
So, Evan, you obviously own it. Try to sell us on this piece of garbage.
I mean, all right, let's start with the tagline. If I remember the tagline correctly for this movie, it was something along the lines of, do you remember that kid in high school that you ignored? Because he remembers you. So right off the bat, you knew that you were getting into something completely stupid and ridiculous. I definitely like watched that movie with zero idea that it was going to be good or that, it was going to be bad. I had no idea what to expect.
Dude, and this is
love a horror movie. Yeah, sorry.
The cast, man. The cast is awesome.
Again, I mean, it's one of these horror movies that somehow attracted a young, good-looking cast of people. The killer itself, I thought was clever only because I like a good mask, and I'm a fan of that creepy angel baby mask. And even if you stop and think about it, David Boreanaz is not even really in that movie all that often. Like his scenes are few and far between as it focuses on the killer.
Yeah, he's too busy killing people.
There may not be. Right, exactly. It's fine. Like it's, yeah, well, I mean, at that point, it's got some decent kills in it. Denise Richards is in that too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I mean, again, another 3-hour movie of her running around. I'll watch anything.
Well, and I do want to address the fact that this movie begins something that goes for about the next 8 years of remaking classic 70s horror movies. And
Shane, how you didn't love this movie considering it was directed by the guy who did Urban Legend. I don't know how you don't love this film.
Yeah, this was its follow-up. Yeah.
It was so terrible, man. I hate this movie. Like, I don't remember anything redeeming about it. You know what? I might try to find it tonight when we get done and watch it because like now I'm interested. I know I only ever watched it once, and I remember hating it. I remember the final scene where like nobody really knows that David Boreanaz is the killer, but his nose starts bleeding, and like they've shown you through the movie that the killer's nose bleeds, and you're just like, yeah, we figured it out. You didn't have to like spoon feed that to us.
I would like to amend this tagline because now I have the real tagline.
Okay, what is it?
Be prepared. Have your minds blown. Remember that kid everyone ignored on Valentine's Day? He remembers you. So not too far off. But,
yeah, it's close.
Shane, it is on Vudu, free.
Free on Vudu? All right, well, I know what I'm doing in a couple of hours.
You can also buy the collector's edition for $19.95 on Amazon.
What a great mask he wore while he was shooting people with
the Cupid's arrow.
Yeah. So the next movie that we're gonna get to in 2001 is one that I think blends sci-fi and horror very well. Is Jeepers Creepers, where you've got a killer who is fast and a killer who is really hard to kill. I feel like there's a lot of tension in that movie. Not a huge cast in the first one, but I feel like it's a really tense movie trying to get away from the creeper.
I felt like that movie was, for me, it reinvigorated, like, I'd gotten so tired with all the horror at that point, with it not being very imaginative and so many bad movies like Valentine and they're coming out and stuff like that. But then, like, that one for me, the director is a real creep and weirdo.
Victor Salva definitely has issues. Definitely did jail time for child molestation,
which is really weird. And if once you know that and you watch the movie, it is so messed up. Because of the fact that, like, the killer is doing what he's doing to teenagers.
Yep.
The killer's chasing only teenagers. The killer is gets away with it at the end.
There's a lot of anti-cop stuff throughout the movie. A lot of
Dude, like, the movie is really, really grotesque from that standpoint.
Yep.
If you're thinking about it while you're knowing what the director believes or has done in the past, but if you can disconnect from that and just watch the movie for what it was, I thought it was really effective. Justin Long, in, like, the first movie, I can never remember him in. He, like, these kids are basically this movie and Joyride, which I don't know if this
Joyride is next. Joyride was a month later.
Both of those movies to me show teenagers doing the right thing at the right time and things still not working properly. Like most of the time you watch these horror movies and you're like, why are you doing that? Go to the cop or go over there to a lit area. And it's like both Joyride and this movie do everything right from a character standpoint and what teenagers should do, and it still backfires and it still does not go well for them. But yeah, I really enjoyed Jeepers Creepers. I literally have to try when I watch it. I think I've watched it once or twice since I found out what Victor Salva had done, and it's hard for me to watch it. But if you can disconnect that too, I think it's a awesome movie. The Creeper is really freaks me out, and as far as, like, one of the iconic Universal movies, like Universal horror film figures, I put him up there with Michael Myers and Freddy and Jason, just because of how creepy and messed up it was for me to watch that film. So,
Evan, any thoughts on Jeepers Creepers and or Joyride?
I'm a fan of both of them. I think Justin Long, like, it was one of the movies that I've watched with him in it where I wasn't annoyed by him in the slightest. And I do like Justin Long. I think he's extremely funny. I think that sometimes he tends to go overboard.
Okay.
Now, this role for him, there was some humor, but it was very straight-faced for the most part, very dramatic. I think he pulled it off. Again, as Jason says, that creeper is terrifying. He's well done. And I love movies that use practical effects. Like, I'll take that over CGI any day of the week. And the costume was incredible from that standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
It was fun. It was dark. I have zero complaints about that movie. But yeah, I mean, I think that certainly is not something I'm going to watch anytime in the near future based on the Victor Salva crap that he did. I did see the whole Victor Salva
thing. The whole Victor Salva thing that sucks the most is I grew up really enjoying the movie Powder. And that's unfortunately another one that he wrote and directed.
Right.
And once you know that and you go back and look at all of the, like, bullying and all of the, like, anti-adult things that go on in Powder, it's like, oh, all right, well, I see where your mind was when you wrote this.
Well, and the sad part with that for me is the fact that he is obviously he's obviously damaged.
Oh, for sure.
Knowing what he got arrested for and then watching Powder and watching Jeepers Creepers, you can definitely tell that he's psychologically damaged from what probably happened to him before he did what he did.
Sure.
And so it kind of sucks because it's like the chicken or the egg, as far as, like, what happened first kind of moment.
Sure. And the worst part about it is he's obviously talented at telling stories.
Oh,
I feel like both of those stories are very well written. Both of those stories are very well directed. It just sucks knowing why he could do what he did, like why he was able to tell those stories.
Well, and if you think about it, we're probably screwed if we ever get a full list of people who have done horrible things in Hollywood, right?
Oh,
like,
you're
like
totally
if a list ever really comes out and explains exactly what everybody has done in Hollywood, we're probably disgusted and not turning on like 80% of what we watch.
You're
So,
probably not wrong.
So yeah, absolutely.
So Evan, I had interrupted you just because I wanted to get my Victor Salva bit in there. What were you saying about him?
I think I forget what my point was. I'd seen the third one, or I tried to make it through the third one, and that was not nearly as good as the other two. But crossing over to Joyride, Joyride, I think took probably out of everything we've discussed so far the biggest scream factor, and that was the voice. I mean, a lot of that movie is just that voice over the radio, and it is again another terrifying voice. I will never forget the name Candy Cane ever again. It's
and even better than that, they don't catch him. He gets away in the end.
Not at all.
Like
I've watched the 3 or 4 sequels. Yeah, yep. Every time he gets away.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I haven't watched any of the sequels to
Joyride.
I watched Jeepers Creepers 2, but I haven't seen 3. 2 was two was good, but I liked that they changed it up because of the fact that it was an entire bus full of kids and them trying to figure out how to get out of what they're in. But yeah, that I've never seen any of the other Joyrides. That first one was enough for me that I didn't feel like I could visit anymore.
I happened to catch like one of those sci-fi stupid marathons that they do,
right.
And I just couldn't stop watching them. And by the third or fourth one, I mean he does. He gets away every goddamn time, and it's the same song and dance, but that voice is what makes those movies. Period.
So moving forward with the next 6 years on this list, there's going to be not a lot that we're really going to like spend much time on, because what ends up happening is all these movies we've just talked about start getting sequels. We got Jason X and Halloween Resurrection, and then we got Final Destination 2, Freddy vs. Jason, Jeepers Creepers 2. The only like original stuff that we really had around that time was the movie Wrong Turn and the movie Saw, which Wrong Turn is ridiculous in a creepy way.
Oh, that movie!
I love Wrong Turn.
Of course we do. It's Eliza Dushku. Like,
well, it is Eliza Dushku.
Go wrong. Like,
you mean my best close personal friend, Eliza Dushku? Yeah,
you suck.
I was gonna say, I heard you met her.
You should have FaceTimed me.
Yeah. You check out the pictures on Facebook.
Be like, hey, Eliza, we're old friends. My friend Jason wants to FaceTime with you. So,
all right, Evan, what's great about Wrong Turn? What did they do well in that movie?
I mean, Eliza Dushku right off the bat, I think was a phenomenal choice for a lead there. It's just fun. Like, I was not 100% sure where the movie was going. The creature cannibal people are terrifying. Again, a wonderful movie filled with some great kill scenes, some good uses of the bow and arrow. I always remember the opening scene of them like rock climbing. Yeah, I do. And the wire to the face, I can get that image out of my head.
Yeah, that was rough.
Cannibalism is messed up, and I think they took it to a whole new level with the inbreeding family members.
Yep.
Eating their way through tourists I mean, it's graphic, which is good to a point.
For sure.
I mean, Jeremy Sisto I thought was great in that movie.
Oh yeah.
Emmanuel Shrieky I think was in that.
Yeah,
she is
great.
How do you go wrong? How do you go wrong with those two females in that film?
I mean,
perfect.
Great casting choices, I think.
I'm pretty sure she gets her head cut off, and I was very upset when that happened.
There she is. I mean, even from just like a filming standpoint, like just the shots of the woods and the overshots of the mountains and things like that, I thought it was beautifully shot from that perspective.
Definitely set the tone. So
man.
I know Jason doesn't like Saw, but I think Saw, and I'm a huge fan of the entire franchise.
Wait. I really like Saw 1 until the end. I really like Saw 2's ending.
Yes.
But I don't like the rest of the movie. The rest of that movie is crap. And I don't remember much about any of the other ones. I can just tell you that the first one, I loved the first one until the reveal at the end. And then that ruined the movie for me because it makes absolutely zero sense. And then the second one, I thought the whole movie was crap. But then the reveal at the very end of that one was perfect.
Safe opens.
When the safe opens, like it was perfect. It's literally
here's
wonderful writing.
If I can believe that Rebecca Gayheart can take an axe and chop off the head of a woman who is driving a car at 60 miles an hour and live through that, I have to be able to believe that a man can put a drug in his system to slow down his breathing enough to lay there and be able to control what's going on. Because as you learn later in the franchise, he was not alone in that, and he had a helper.
I don't care about the fact that he had a helper. I care about the fact that he had a buzzer in his hand that electrocuted Carrie Elways, and every time that he wanted to, he would flick that button and electrocute him. But Carrie Elways is a doctor who has no idea that a man's breathing when it looks like he shot it off his face, like 10 feet away from it.
Why do you believe that he was the one that was shocking him? Why?
Because he does it. He does it again.
When?
Right near the end. When he's getting up to leave the room, Carrie Elways does something, and he hits up. He's got the buzzer in his hand. He presses it, and it shocks him, and then he closes the door on him. Dude, no, it makes no sense whatsoever. I said,
neither does any of the movies we watched or talked about tonight.
No. I'm okay with suspension of disbelief on so many different levels, but like I said, Carrie Elways not recognizing the fact that he is breathing 10 feet away from him, even though he's a doctor.
Again, I believe he drugged himself to the point that it slowed his heartbeat down. Nice.
But then he's not going to be coherent enough to be pressing a button.
What stops his accomplice from pushing the button those times?
Oh my gosh. See, now you're going too far. Now that's going to me. That's my suspension of disbelief that you can't do it.
Later in the franchise, they revealed that his partner was watching the events that were going on in there. You can't believe that they were pushing the button then?
But I don't care. You can't retcon your way out of that. I think retconning your way out of bad writing is horrible. You should literally I hated that ending, man. The rest of that movie is picture perfect. I love that whole movie until that very end, and then that ruined it for me.
Evan,
but I was willing to go on. I was willing to watch more.
I had actually forgotten about the whole buzzing thing because clearly my brain doesn't care about
it's such a small part of the movie. It's so minute.
Listen,
but it's not a small part.
It's a minute detail. It's very important to Jason. Let him have his weird thing. I do like Saw. It's one of the few franchises where I actually find it hard to watch some of the kills.
I'll agree with
I'm
that.
not a huge fan of torture. Some of the kills are just mind-blowingly disturbing.
Yes.
Tobin Bell is incredible.
Yes.
Again, it's another one of those things. His voice, want to play a game, I'm never going to forget that.
Yep.
He made the entire franchise from start to finish. Had you cast anybody else, I don't think I could picture anyone else doing it besides him. They're fun. I mean, they're fun.
I will say that Saw seemed like a fundamental shift in how they made horror movies.
I'll agree with
just
that.
Like 100%. Scream was.
Yep.
Just like Scream was. They decided to go with the high school stuff, and they started to do kids or people just in college or whatever. And so you had these fresh faces constantly. Whereas with Saw, you kept getting more seasoned actors who came in. But like you said, they kept going crazier and crazier with the kills and gore. And in my opinion, that's kind of like the start of gore porn for mainstream horror movies.
Oh, definitely.
So it had a huge fundamental shift, because after that, like, they were just trying to find the grossest way possible. Um, I remember what was the Hills Have Eyes came out after
Yep.
Saw, and they decided to be really gross on some of that stuff. The remake of The Hills Have Eyes.
Sure. Yeah.
But it started getting really, really gross to watch horror movies, which is kind of one of the reasons why I stopped for a long time too, because like at that point in time I was probably watching any horror movie that came out. Not too long after the Saws, I probably started weaning off of horror films for a while. I've picked back up a little bit more because they don't care so much. They care more about the scares now again, and the jump scares, which I know a lot of people don't care for.
Sure.
But like, give me a good killing with a jump scare with a good killing compared to just the gore porn where I'm going to watch somebody's intestines constantly coming out or something. Like, I don't need it. So
sure.
That's a personal choice.
Sure. Getting off topic a little bit, tangenting from what you just said, following the gore porn that happened, I checked out from a lot of horror films when they started doing supernatural horror stuff. The Insidious franchise, the I can't remember what the other big one is right now. The Annabelle,
Sinister.
The Sinister, the Annabelle with the dolls and stuff. The one, the Vera Farmiga is in it, where it's in the 70s.
Patrick Wilson.
And Patrick Wilson, whatever that franchise, the Conjuring franchise, like all that supernatural stuff. Like, I unfortunately believe that supernatural horror is just kind of a way to get away with doing anything that we want and never having to explain it. Oh, ghosts are responsible. Cool. That's not the kind of horror I like. I like slasher films where at the end I find out who did it and why they were doing it. I want some good kills in the middle of it. I want, justifiable, this is why they were able to pull that off. This is like why they weren't being accounted for anywhere else. Like, and at the end I want it to be revealed who it is and why they were killing all their friends, and or why they were killing the people that killed or that tried to kill them a year before. Like, I want a better plot than, oh, it's all ghosts and we can do whatever we want.
And I think it's generational though, because I mean, like, the first, you talked about how Scream was one of the very first horror movies you ever saw, and that kind of feeds into your love of that kind of genre.
Yep, I agree.
Whereas, I can't say that I love the unkillable killer, like Jason and Michael and Freddy and everything. But like, I don't know if I love that more than I like Ghostface. They kind of fit the same genre for me personally. Sure. But like, I grew up watching, that kind of horror was my first horror, was all these guys who were unkillable.
For sure.
So, but yeah, like, I totally could see how that feeds the genre, and they can ride that wave for a while, and then they're like, okay, now we gotta shift gears and we gotta go back to, let's go that way instead of this way.
Well, and I think a lot of what kind of drives these supernatural films is purely studio based. I mean, because you can slap a PG-13 rating on a supernatural movie and pump 5 or 6 of those out a year, and they're automatic money makers because you're going to get those young audience.
And a lot of those supernatural kills don't involve blood or gore or anything like that. So, like you said, you get away with that PG-13.
Mystics and witches and spells, and the Scream and the horror movies that we like. Stabby requires blood.
Stabby and lots of F words.
Right,
so
exactly.
Let me ask you guys this: Can you guys give me a couple of horror movies that aren't in the genre that we've talked about tonight, mainly this time frame? Can you give me 1 or 2 movies in the horror genre that don't fall into this time frame, that maybe don't even fall into your normal round of favorite? Like Shane talking about, I Want a Killer Who You Explain and everything. Can you give me 1 or 2 movies that don't fall into that box, if you will, for you personally?
It's easy for me to default back to John Carpenter and say The Thing.
Okay.
Where you've got like an alien killer that's going around and killing people.
I think of that as sci-fi. I don't think of that as horror, but I can totally see why you would think of it as horror.
And I don't disagree. It's definitely a science fiction film. It involves aliens and something that's not real. But all right, so like I'm trying to think.
My two, Evan. Do you got any that you can pop out?
One that comes up the top of my head that kind of actually freaks me out still. I watched it recently was Stay Alive, which is kind of supernatural to a point, but it also deals with a legitimate killer who takes form. It's based on you basically have this video game these people get a hold of, and what happens in the game when you die happens in real life when you die.
I haven't seen this movie, but I do remember like the cover for it. Like, okay,
yeah, it was like a bloody hand holding a video game controller or something of that nature. It kind of crosses the line between the supernatural and the physical because, I mean, if you get killed in the game by a pair of cutting shears, and in real life you're getting killed by these cutting shears.
Interesting. I should watch that.
I feel like I watched that movie.
It was. I want to say it's early 2000s.
It was 05, 06. Yeah.
Okay.
So like, okay, I don't know if this is exactly what you're going for, but recent horror that I really enjoyed was Happy Death Day. I thought that was absolutely amazing. You get your killer reveal at the end. It was just again science fiction because it's got the concept of living the same day over and over again. I don't know if that's 100% what you were wanting. Like going along the lines of Evan with the supernatural theme, the Fog, I felt was a really creepy movie for what it was, where you find out who the guys are that are killing everybody, but they're ghosts and spirits, so they really shouldn't be able to kill people. What we got there?
We've got the Banana Splits horror movie that came out this past year.
Oh, no idea what that is. What's Banana Splits?
Banana Splits was an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon back in the day.
Oh.
And these are animatronic killing things.
Do they work at Chuck E. Cheese?
It's like a family kid show, and
the
studio shuts down, and then they go on a killing spree. Animatronic killing spree.
Out of 10, how do you rate it?
Like a 6.5.
All right.
The two that pop into my brain are for something classic. I still love Psycho, man. Like that. The ending of that movie really messed me up. Like him running into the room with the knife and the way that the light was swinging and the way he looked, it totally freaked me out. Even when I saw it, and I was probably 20 when I saw it, 19 or 20, because I saw it before the Gus Van Sant version came out. So that was
98. Yep.
Okay, 98. So I was 17. I was 17 when I saw it. That really messed my brain up. It's still like edged in there. And then the other one that I really liked, which I was really surprised, was and Shane's heard me talk about this, was Lights Out. The one with Teresa Randall. Like that's the sound mixing on that movie was really well done. I ended up quality checking it. For those who don't know, in the movie theater industry, you're supposed to watch a movie before you show it to the public to make sure that it runs properly. And so I was doing that on a night where I was in the building alone. Every other light was off in the building except for the auditorium I was in, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I didn't start it until I pulled a double feature that night, and I didn't start it until like 1:30 in the morning or something like that, and I'm watching it, and the sound effects going around the room and stuff were just messing with my brain, and it was fantastic. I was quite surprised that it was so that it had such an impact on me. But yeah, that movie was a lot of fun. So
nice.
And then, what was the other one? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. We didn't mention that.
Well, give me 1 second. I'm literally going to list the rest of the movies that I have on this list that we don't need to spend any time on because they are literally all remakes of 70s horror movies. basically from 2003 to 2009. If it wasn't a franchise movie, it was a remake, and that would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which we can talk about in just a minute, The Amityville Horror, House of Wax, The Fog, When a Stranger Calls, Black Xmas, Black Christmas. They did the X in that movie. Prom Night, My Bloody Valentine, Friday the 13th, and Sorority Row.
Okay, out of all of those, literally the only one that I liked and enjoyed was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, which was it was very gore porn. That was after Saw, right?
No, that was 1 year before Saw.
Okay, maybe that's what started gore porn for us. I don't know, but like I remember it being very gory and effective. And but like now, yeah, that I really enjoy that movie.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is the one that I don't like because at the very end, when Leatherface is about to kill the main chick, they somehow find out that they're related, and so he doesn't kill her.
No, that's not in the first. That's not in the. It's not that one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That might have been New Beginnings when they did the prequel.
Oh, okay.
But or it might have been, who knows? It might have been that other one that was in 3D. I can't remember which one that one.
Okay.
But yeah, like the end of the one with Jessica Biel, she gets away from him far enough. She runs out to a street in the rain at night, and she jumps into a semi truck, and then Leatherface, or no, she jumps into the back of a she jumps in the bed of a back pickup truck. And Leatherface runs out at the last possible second, right before she's gonna get pulled away, like right before the driver's gonna take off, and he runs out and he swings the chainsaw at her and barely misses her and hits the car, and then he's just standing in the road and he's got one arming, waving it with the chainsaw. And dude, I just like that whole movie is very graphic. That was directed by or produced by Michael Bay. It was one of his first ones that he produced in the horror genre with Platinum Dunes, and I felt like it was a hit out of the ballpark. I personally think it's better than the original, which I've watched and think is I can see why it was groundbreaking at the time, especially being I believe it was a student film, if I'm remembering correctly. Being what it was for when it came out, I can understand why it was so groundbreaking, but I don't think it's a good movie. And I actually like the remake quite a bit more. So,
Evan, any of those last ones that I listed, do you care about any of them? All the remakes?
Surprisingly, my Bloody Valentine.
Really?
And that's solely based on that was My Bloody Valentine 3D, and that kicked off the 3D craze that we're in now. That was the first 3D movie that I saw in theaters because that was one of the very first few to come out. And it really added a whole different effect to the horror movie for me. I mean, it's not a great movie by any means, but again, some great kills. You got a great cast. You got Jensen Ackles. If you're a fan of Supernatural, it's fun. I mean, and again, going with the 3D aspect, just blood splatter coming out of me was awesome. And Final Destination 4 or 5, it was came out just after that, and that was also in 3D. And that kind of seemed to be where the starting point was, and now everything is 3D nowadays.
Well, hardly anything is anymore. Well, I mean, I feel like the 3D craze definitely has dropped off because studios got really stupid with it instead of marketing it properly and doing it for movies.
They stopped putting the work into it.
Well, yeah, but with horror movies, it makes perfect sense to do 3D, in my opinion. Sure. Whereas, I don't need a 3D Gods and Monsters or whatever the hell that was, Gods and whatever it was, and I don't need a 3D Clash of the Titans, and it literally was on every single movie they were doing that 3D retroscoping, and it's absolutely horrid. Whereas I feel like if they would have.
Keep talking. Hold on.
I was gonna say if they would have just left it alone and done 3D for movies that were meant to be in 3D, or just doing it for horror movies, or just doing it with kids movies, it would make more sense to me.
Yes, I still have my old VHS copy of My Bloody Valentine 3D, and they actually give you old school 3D glasses And
Awesome.
3D
Red
is actually,
blues?
it still
Oh, nice.
pops off the screen.
So yeah, that's one maybe I should buy on Blu-ray on 3D because I might actually enjoy it. I don't know. I'm one of the few people who actually still has a 3D TV in classes, so in my house. So
Fancy.
Man, it is so bothering me that I cannot remember this horror film. I just remember the end of it. There's a main chick, and there's a killer like Leatherface, and they're in like a barn or something, and she starts pleading with him that they're family and they're related, and so he decides not to kill her, and then like a cop shows up, and the main villain kills the cop, and then like him and the main female just go off together. Like,
That actually is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
is it?
I have it. Let me see if I can find which one you're talking about.
See, I thought it might have been the 2017 Leatherface, but that's not listed as the end of that movie.
that's the one you and I watched together.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's New Beginnings, man. Because that's the one that starts out with Leatherface being born on the floor of the butcher shop, or like the meat packing.
New Beginnings. Texas.
So, which is really messed up. That was one of the That's a movie that I started, like, I always got a popcorn, right?
Oh, here we go. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning in 2006. I have a feeling
It should have Alexandra Daddario in it.
And yeah, dude, like
this one is Drama Brewster. What is this?
Maybe it's the Texas Chainsaw that came out yeah, that's 2013.
Alexandria Daddario. Film. Texas Chainsaw 3D. There we go.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Yep, that's the one with Alexandria Daddario or whatever. That's the one you and I watched together, Shane.
Yes, here we go. Yes, the plot of this one is what I was thinking of. All right, at least I was in the general ballpark of the right franchise with my movie thoughts.
Yeah, because she like gets like the farmhouse or something.
Yep.
And yeah.
Yes. All right. Cool. Well, gentlemen, we have talked for an hour and 45 minutes about a lot of horror movies, and it's gone by real fast. And I think going through all of these movies, what we can pretty much say is not many of them hold up to Scream or what Scream created. Some of them are good, some of them are enjoyable, but in the way that Hitchcock did Psycho and changed psychological horror, John Carpenter changed it with Halloween 15 years later, giving us Halloween, and then he went on his run, and I'm pretty sure people in the early 80s were like, nothing holds up to Halloween, The Fog and Terror Train and Prom Night, and they were probably like, none of this holds up to Halloween, and they're still cheesy and fun for what they are. But Scream definitely brought the horror genre into the 90s, and then it evolved into what it is today. I really miss a good slasher movie, and I hope that at some point and I don't think it's going to be Scream 5. As excited as I am for Scream 5, I don't believe I believe that's going to continue their franchise and do whatever it can for those characters. But I really hope someday someone comes along and creates a new modern day, like, it just, technology changes everything now. It makes it hard to do, like, you can't trace calls now you can trace calls that you couldn't trace back in 1996, or caller ID. Cell phones were pretty brand new. Like, modern technology kind of makes it hard for a real good slasher movie to be a thing.
I think if Scream 5 wants to be successful, they have to either, like I said, kill off a major cast member.
Sure.
Easton said, kill off a major cast member right at the beginning, set the tone, or you truly pass the torch on to a group of people who you think can carry on the franchise for another, 3 or 4 films after that.
I mean,
Yeah, like
simply rehash the same old thing. Right. Well, that's the thing. You have to really do something really inventive and reinventive just to revitalize this franchise. Otherwise, it's going to be pointless and it's not going to be very good.
We're coming up on it's going to be about 10 years. So I'm pretty sure 4 was in 2011. So if the next one comes out in 21, that's a 10-year gap. You could definitely pick up with Kirby's character somewhere else. And you could definitely pick up with Sidney Prescott getting murdered in the opening sequence. I'm pretty sure Neve Campbell is up to the point where she is much like Jamie Lee Curtis is and is like, I'm just kind of done with this. It's going to be interesting to see. I can't remember the name of the directors that are doing it, but like the fact that it's not going to be Wes Craven, I feel like it's going to have a completely different vibe, which is possibly why Neve Campbell might be willing to come back to do a death sequence. I don't know how close her relationship was with Wes Craven or anything, but I could see her saying, look, I want to close the book because Wes isn't involved anymore, but I'll still give you guys a cameo to let you kill me off to create this new like killer and why they're doing it. And then I don't think anybody else lived from 4 that could be why they would go after Kirby, but I would be fine with Kirby being a main character in it.
Yeah. I mean, the only issue there is, she's no longer a teenager. So you gotta, if you're gonna bring her back, you can bring her back as like the one who's like ushering in the new crowd, essentially. Sure. Maybe she's a teacher at a school or something, or I don't know. I think it would be really cool to see whether it be Neve Campbell or Courtney Cox or David Arquette getting brutally murdered at the beginning of the movie. I think you could do something cool with that. But you never know. I mean, if the people who are behind Scream 5 have a plot line for 5, 6, and 7,
sure.
Or I mean, you could do something really cool where like Neve Campbell dies at the very beginning or at the very end of of 5.
Sure.
Where it helps propel you like in heck, kill her, and then like that's the end, knowing that you're gonna do. Well, maybe they won't do that because they don't know if they'll do 6 unless it's successful, probably. But
sure.
But yeah, you could do like in my thought process. I'm like, hold off on maybe kill Courtney Cox or David Arquette at the beginning of 5, and then at the end of it, like literally, like Neve Campbell gets shot, and like that be the end of the movie. So you just be like, oh, like. Right. And then like they're like say Scream 6 next year, see you later. Like, and then you start the next one with the beginning of the fallout of her being dead. That would be kind of cool and interesting. Well, but yeah, you definitely
with how successful the Halloween franchise is at the moment, I could see them possibly greenlighting one in a sequel or a new trilogy, just saying write the trilogy you want, and we'll let you make all 3 of them because Halloween did really well 2 years ago. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see what happens with the Scream franchise, and I because the previous Halloween movie that just came out was a continuation of the story. I don't see that as like the new horror genre. I see that as again Halloween to H2O to the new Halloween is kind of what I consider a trilogy. Well, Halloween 1 and 2, and then H2O, I guess, is what I consider the trilogy. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I really want a good whodunit slasher movie now. I want one that surprises me, that's got good twists to it, and I really hope sooner than later we get that.
Yeah, we watched that one about the amusement park. Scream Park.
Yeah.
Scream Park. That one was interesting, except when they reveal who the killer is, you have no idea who it is. Like, it's nobody.
It's nobody.
Literally and you're just like,
what we truly need. No, sorry, Jason. I didn't want to.
No, please, no.
I was just going to say, we need a true sequel to disturbing behavior, because I think that story wasn't done, and I think that there's so much more you could do with disturbing behavior as a friendship.
I mean, Nick Stahl, 22 years later, is still teaching and still continuing Bruce Greenwood's work, and he's literally got a whole town of these kids now who have grown up to adults. Yeah.
Like the new family moves in and like bad stuff happens.
No, a sorority house opens, so it's literally just all chicks in bikinis outside all the time, and every male adult in the entire town just starts fighting over it.
It's quite messed up that like that was like the catalyst.
Yeah.
Like
when you become sexually charged, you become aggressive and start fights. Oh, okay. Weird. So anyway,
as all of us do, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Anything you guys want to say in closing? I have appreciated our time, coming up on 2 hours now. I love talking about horror movies. I love talking to you guys about horror movies. Any last things you want to say about the horror genre and your feelings on it? Evan, go ahead and go first.
Me first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to see more Creed soundtracks.
Okay, sure.
To see more kids in schools dying, because the rule of horror is if you go to school, you're gonna die. No, I also am hoping for another good. Just give me a new killer that I can, kind of idolize.
Yep. Jason, horror thoughts, franchise?
I'm worried that he just said a new killer that I can idolize. That makes me worried for you, Evan. No, I'm kidding. It'd be really cool to see a new version come out of something that is more akin to what it seems like all three of us enjoy the most out of horror movies. So give me something that's a good whodunit. Give me something that's I don't care if it's it seems to work best with teenagers because people don't believe them most of the time anyway. So I mean, heck, maybe the three of us should get together and just write one.
That would be fun to do.
Who knows? That might be a little bit more fun and entertaining for us to try and figure out a way to do that.
I know a movie that has its 20th anniversary coming up in December that definitely needs a sequel written to it.
I don't have my DVD copy around. It's upstairs.
I didn't know I was going to name drop it either. Mine's over there. But the horror film that Jason and I made in 1999/2000 is seeing its 20th anniversary this December.
It's literally a direct rip-off of Scream.
Literally a direct rip-off from Scream. The costume, almost the exact same, just with blank face instead of ghost face. But yeah, it was all we wrote a horror film because we loved Scream so much, and we pretty much ripped off everything that we loved in Scream and put it in this movie. But that was 20 years ago. We actually have a call in 2 days where we're getting a bunch of the cast members back together, and we're gonna record it, and might not put it out as an official Shane Talks, but it'll get put out on the internet at some point. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up, and I want to just throw a shout out that we got a couple of episodes coming up. Tonight I announced that Jason Richardson a couple of days ago made a post asking for favorite film directors. Most people are putting 10 and a bunch of honorable mentions. Next week's episode 12, is going to be going over all those directors' lists. So if you want to contribute to that, go to the Facebook page, write up your 10 favorite directors, and Jason and I will be going over those lists and talking about, adding up the list, seeing which directors make the most lists and things like that. Episode 13 is going to be called 13 Ghosts. Kind of named after the horror movie that we briefly touched on, but I'm going to put up a poll next week with every ghost character that I can think of that's ever been in a movie. You can vote for as many of them as you want, and I want to see what the 13 most popular ghost characters are in movies. Episode 14 is going to be called Always Be My Affleck. We are finally going to do the Affleck episode, where it will literally be about 2 hours of me man-crushing on him and all of the movies that he's done, both acting and directing. And then episode 15 is the last one that I have planned out, and it's going to be called 15 Bucks Little Man. We are going to talk about Jay and Silent Bob and all of their movies and everything that they have influenced in my life and everyone else on the call's life. So those are the next like 4 episodes that we've got lined up. They might change. They're tentative to change. If somebody else throws out a better idea than one of those, we could shift some things around. But as of now, the tentative calendar has those 4 episodes coming up. So thank you for listening to this one. Thank you, Jason and Evan, for talking to me about horror films. I've had a blast, and I will see you guys next week.